Sea Hags make an excellent low CR boss monster, and today we're going to take a look at adding a splash of danger to our first tier adventures. Today on Encounter Academy. Welcome to Game On, a channel all about board games, RPGs, and tabletop gaming. My name is Justin, and we're doing this video in collaboration with the Blue Dragon Guild channel. They are also dropping a Sea Hag video today. I will have that video in the pinned comments below. So I have a confession for you. I've never actually made a purpose-built Sea Hag encounter. I've only used them as random encounters, which, after reading more and more about their lore and stat blocks, I was doing them quite the disservice. I want to let you know that this encounter is drag and drop, plug and play into any of your games, as long as you have like a hamlet or a town around and a source of water that you can justify having sea creatures, water creatures around that town. Also, this is specifically built for level 3 for 5 or 4 players, but we can add a little finagling in it. So let's get to Astral VTT and talk a little bit more about the encounter. So let's take a look at the Sea Hag stat block and why they are an interesting creature. So they're just a CR2, nothing crazy. But what's interesting about the Sea Hag is that they're one of the only monsters that has a death effect to them. We'll get to that in a second, but first their armor class is 14, hit points 52, their speed on land is 30, but they can swim faster at 40. They got dark vision, they can speak Aquan, Common, Giant. You know, their stats aren't anything terribly special, with their con and their strength being high. They're obviously amphibious, and I really like their hideous appearance, because it helps build the lore with them that they really don't like beauty. If you look at them in page 179 of the Monsters Manual, it talks all about them being ugly inside and out, and how they seek to destroy anything that resembles beauty. This being built for level 3, a DC 11 Wisdom saving throw might be hard for some builds, but it's not terribly difficult. What I really like, though, is the Death Glare, which is still a DC 11 Wisdom save, but if they fail it, they drop to 0 hit points. Now, Sea Hags aren't going to be caught out in the open by themselves. They're probably going to have some sort of minions, and I have chosen to go with Kuo Toa for hers. For those of you who aren't very aware of Kuo Toa's lore, they're interesting creatures. They literally make up their own gods and then worship them, and they like become real. It's kind of weird. It's kind of almost like the orcs from 40k and how they just think it works, so it does. So what I decided to do was, hey, the Kuo Toa have seen this Sea Hag literally able to kind of change her appearance, and they're like, you know what? You're good enough to be our god. So I'm going to throw in about 5 Kuo Toa, maybe 6, depending on what we're doing and how many creatures that we have, or party members, I should say. They are a CR 1/4. They have an armor class of 13, hit points of 18. Nothing terribly crazy. I like their sticky shield, and I like their slippery, which is going to be very important for the scene that we are about to set up. So I have a little town here on Astral VTT. Again, this is plug and play. You can make any kind of small town or hamlet that you would like. And what's going on here is that I like telling you the cliche that the local constabulary has no idea what's going on. And people have had their houses broken into. But nothing has ever been stolen. You see, in these houses, mirrors have been smashed, little girls' dolls have been like destroyed, their faces, and family pictures have been scratched, where all the women's faces are kind of scratched off. And the PCs find themselves wandering into here, and there's not much that the local law enforcement has to go on. The only thing that they've found is that everywhere that has had some issues, they have always found like water. It's been puddles of water. You know, everything has been kind of wet, as if like somebody was, you know, just came out of a pond, and they were breaking into the houses. And this is actually quite important for the encounter and for the lore, in case you have anybody in your table who is like, well, they can't do that, blah, 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 blah. I am borrowing from the Kuo Toa's slippery ability. So Kuo Toa have a special ability where they have advantage on escaping from grapples because they're wet and slimy and slippery.
I like that idea for out-of-encounter roleplay, where they're able to slip and slide and kind of squeeze and squirm their way in through buildings. Maybe not through cracks in like the door, but maybe through a partially opened window or something where they are commanded by the Sea Hag to go into any of these places that has anything that can show any kind of beauty, and then break it, destroy it, do whatever they can. And this happens when the people are asleep, the townsfolk are out farming, just any single time. Usually at night, though. I'd have to say at night because Kuo Toa don't like the sunlight. They have sunlight sensitivity in their stat block, so that makes sense for their role playing. I want the players to kind of try to figure this out. It's up to you on what kind of extra clues you want to give them. But I think it would be fun if they go around to the different houses and try to get some information from their NPCs. Like, what happened, what was destroyed, what was defaced. Do you have any ideas on what it can be? Finally, you have a little dog that kind of runs into town, and the player's like, what's going on? And it turns out that the dog is trying to lead the players to a merchant. This merchant sells snake oil. They are really trying to push beauty supplies, like drink this and you'll be beautiful, and that kind of thing. And it turns out that he has been mugged and destroyed, and some of his stuff destroyed, and that'll come into play in a little bit for what the players are going to get as a reward. But they'll end up having to help this merchant, and he found himself knocked out, and he's in a field, and all that he remembers is he saw what looked like fish people jumping into a hole. And that's when we get to the actual encounter. I think the players should roleplay this up. I think they should have fun trying to figure out what the heck happened, what is he actually selling, what things were stolen, what things were broken. In the end, this merchant is selling what is supposed to be like a beauty potion, where really what it is just a little bit of filter of love mixed in with a whole bunch of just rock gut grain alcohol and maybe some like lavender. And he's selling it to people, and it's just enough filter of love where they can like look at themselves in the mirror and think that they look more beautiful than they actually are, but they're not full on falling in love. Now, what I want this to be is I want the merchant to give the filter of love that he has, like a full bottle, to the party. I think that that's a fun thing to give to a party at low levels, just to mess with NPCs, like make them fall in love with something. So the NPCs are going to fall or climb their way down this hole that they have investigated, and they land in a bit of sand underground, and they have some water that has been standing, but there's also some liquid water that's moving through this cavern that they find themselves in. And they're going to end up getting to a bit of a rock trap, which is what this area is here. This is not designed to hurt the players, and if you have a good rogue or an artificer, somebody who's able to disable it, that's awesome, but really what it's there for is to prevent anybody from trying to sneak their way into this lair. So the players are going to find their way into a half-buried archway, and they can look in and they can see what looks to be like some crazy fish mermaid lady who's just bathing in this nice cistern, and 6 Kuo Toa if you have 5 level 3 parties, or you can have 5 Kuo Toa if you have 4 level 3 party members. This will make each of these a hard encounter, but if you add the 6th to a 4-player game, it will become deadly. And if you add a 7th to a 5-player, it'll become deadly if you want it to be a little bit harder. Now, I personally believe that the Sea Hag is gonna really have to try to use her Death Glare on people. She doesn't have much to do with damage. She doesn't really have any reach. She does an average of 10 slashing damage. Really, she's gonna have to use the Kuo Toa to kind of tie up the players, and then she herself is going to either have to try to Death Glare them as some of her initiatives, turns, or she's going to have to move in and swipe. I don't think the illusionary's appearance or the horrific appearance is going to do much. All the players are going to have to try to deal with her at that time. So if the players are within 30 feet of her, that's going to be her one AoE spell. It's not even really a spell, but that is her best really form of hitting most players. She can try the death glare every once in a while. Unfortunately, she can only attack once. Her saving throws aren't that great, so really she needs to focus on these Kuo Toas locking down the players so she can get in and hit. Now, up to you if you want the Sea Hag to actually fight to the death. I think it would be fun if the Sea Hag can slink away and maybe come back as a later reoccurring villain. That's up to you. I don't think the Sea Hag really has anything fun on her. She might have like a pearl that you might want to use as like resurrection pearl. That might be what she has as a treasure, which is actually quite important if you want to use really rare items like that for magical components. Also that filter of love and whatever you want to use as the local sheriff giving them maybe money or something. So this is the encounter I built.
So what do you think? Are you going to add this encounter to your Tier 1 adventures? Well, let us know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching Game On and Encounter Academy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and remember to game on.